as good as you'll ever see. And Footscray are back in front.
I don't know about you guys, but if I see one bloke walking out of here, give the pat on the back from people out there for a good effort, I'll spew up.
From inside the centre square, Boyd kicked the goal. Boyd kicked the goal from inside the centre. I can't believe that.
Hey Pack, welcome to Danny Boyd, a podcast about the most wonderful, the most well-presided over football club in the multiverse. That is the Footscray Football Club, Proprietary Limited. They trade as Western Bulldogs. I'm Danny McGinlay. Tom Boyd is with me. We are live in Disney, Fantasia Studios at Walt Disney HQ.
It is. I'm feeling presidential today, I must say, but it is a fantastic little venue. I haven't actually been here before, and now I can understand why our wonderful president wears pink blazers, because it fits right in here at Disney, which is fantastic.
Did you see the janitors before? It's just a bunch of mops walking around.
There just seems like a vague theme song going on in the background at all times.
There's a mouse in a wizard's costume going, "Come on, you got to clean the kitchen. Come on." We are with the president of the Footscray Football Club, also the managing director of Disney, which is how we snuck in case you don't know the link between that. But welcome back, Madam President. Kylie Watson-Wheeler, it's so good to have you. How are you? Come on, we're in a good stage of the year. We've won 3 out of the last 4, and that, we could have won the 4th if it wasn't for a dodgy 50-metre penalty. You must be up and about.
I most certainly am, and thanks for having me today. It's great to have a chat to you both, as always.
Answer the question. How are you? Come on.
I said I'm great. I'm up and about.
Okay, all right. But okay, what a roller coaster year. People might not. I mean, it's hard to imagine that anyone feels more about your football club more than you do. You yourself. Everyone's the center of their own universe. But presidents have so much. Your reputation, usually financial interests as well. What a journey you've been on. Are you okay?
Well, thanks for caring about me. I do really appreciate that and my well-being. Look, it has certainly been a roller coaster ride of a season so far, that's for sure. And it's been certainly challenging at times and uplifting at other times. But what's great is we're in a phase at the moment of really strong momentum, and we're feeling really up and about the rest of the season.
It does seem strange, so if you take the first half of the year, I felt like we were on the bottom of the ladder. And then I take the next half of the year, I feel like we're in the top 4. We're obviously somewhere in the middle. But we have if you look at our percentage points in particular, 120 sitting 11th with 6 wins. It does feel like over the last 4 weeks, we've been basically one of the best teams in the competition. How have you dealt with, how do you not, I suppose, take that snapshot that you see at any time of year when things are going good or things are going poorly and go, this is the reality, let's make decisions based on this, or let's, I suppose, react to those things. How do you keep things on an even keel, given that it has been as tumultuous a year as I can remember in recent times?
Well, I think one of the most important things is that, obviously there's an enormous amount of white noise in footy. It's the nature of the game. Everybody has an opinion, although as you would have seen, that opinion can change on a dime, completely reverse week to week.
Or at least go dormant for a while.
Well, exactly. But, opinions do wax and wane, that's for sure, which is why it's so incredibly important to focus on the task at hand within the club, to focus on the facts, to talk to the people within the club that are actually experiencing and living the season and the bumps within there. So, I think what's most important is really just maintaining that focus and those conversations and that narrative internally.
Yeah, there's obviously, I don't know if I'd call it white noise. There's a couple of other colours that I'm thinking of that I don't know how to pinpoint.
It ain't red, white and blue, I can tell you that much.
Sort of colour that I see a lot popping up. And obviously there's been, specifically in terms of some of the challenging conversations that have been happening, there's not another club in the land other than maybe North Melbourne, I suppose, who has been getting as much attention on the coach. And how does that, how do you deal with that? Because unfortunately, in my experience, whether we want to believe it or not, whether we want to agree with the opinions and sentiments or not, if there's enough conversations going on about any one thing, it tends to shape the opinions of our supporter base and the football public in general. And throughout my career, there was always the comments of obviously focus on your own 4 walls, listen to the people that are important. And of course that, persists forever. But it is difficult to manage that that narrative, particularly when things are so overwhelmingly pushed in one direction. How do you, from a leadership point of view, or how does the leadership team from that point of view, do you just batten down the hatches and just forget about it and play good footy, or do you have to address it at some stage?
Look, it is really difficult as that noise gets louder, and I call it white noise through that lens of having something that you can hopefully cut out and remove. But it does penetrate into where you're working and what you're thinking about and who you're talking to. But I think the most important thing is really that, as I said, those opinions wax and wane. They change week to week. You have a fantastic win and everybody's on the bus. You have an unexpected terrible loss and there's an overwhelming level of criticism. So as a result of that, if you continued to just listen to and follow the narrative, then you'd be flipping and flopping all over the place, and that's not leadership. Leadership is really understanding what is really happening, getting to the bottom of that, and doing that continuously. And one of the things that I think is really important to understand is that we are having conversations within the club about the club every week, all the time, consistently and constantly. We don't just wait for a terrible win a great win or a terrible loss.
There's been terrible wins. But
this is what I'm saying about flipping and flopping and if you focus on that narrative. But, you really do have to make sure that you're focusing on the facts. And even football experts that are talking in the media, they are making... Well,
I'll say experts. You say experts, I'll say experts.
All right, well, let's...
Audio medium. He did the inverted commas thing.
Yeah. So they're not all experts is my point, obviously.
But those that are experts, they are still only creating an opinion based on what they know. And there are a lot of things that are happening within the club, a lot of nuances that only we know. And so we're the only ones who I think can really understand holistically what's going on and therefore what the best decision is on behalf of the club.
All right, so what's going on? Tell us what's happening inside the club. Tell us everything.
Well, I think there's really positive momentum. As you know, in the off-season, we made quite a few changes to our coaching group. I think that's starting to really settle in really well. We're seeing some great responses as a result of that. We're definitely seeing a really tight unit as a playing group, an undeniable connection to the coach. And so from that perspective, there really is a recognition and an understanding of what they need to do and where they need to go. And I think there's a real gelling that's happening at the moment.
What does settling in that coaching group look like from your perspective? Because obviously all perspectives will be different. Some players will say, they settled in straight away. And that will be purely based on the relationship they might have with one of them. Some of them will say, they don't seem like they're in sync, but we obviously don't see as players a significant amount of the interactions that are required to make it all work, right? We don't see match committee, we don't see their planning meetings, we don't see any of that stuff. But from your position as president, where does that sort of perspective sit in terms of what settling actually looks like in that coaching group? Because to your point, there's 4 or 5 at least new individual faces in there, and obviously Luke being the consistent factor. What have you seen? How does that look like settling from your perspective?
I think it's a seamlessness of the group, so a connectivity between them, I guess a recognition of the journey that they're on and what they're on together and the role particularly that they're playing, the nuances within coming into a new group. You can be a fantastic line coach and at one club and come in and as you know, Tom, every club is different. The playing group's different and really getting under the skin of that. So I'm just seeing a really strong momentum of consistency and seamlessness within that group.
Yeah, it's almost like a lack of wasted energy is the way I would describe it. Because it's sort of like, I think when the coaching group's not quite on the same page, it's just a lot of double handling of everything, and everything's just, so double handling being like one person does one thing and someone else does part of that thing as well, and it just becomes inefficient.
Yeah, I think what's important though is just making sure that we have what our playing group needs, and what our playing group today might be different to what the playing group in a year might need as far as their focus. And I think for us, really creating a strong group that connects across all areas of the club is really important.
I think it's this is definitely partially my fault, but There are elements of a club, I think, who's obviously been, in terms of reaching the ultimate success, only twice in the history and once in recent times. You kind of get nostalgic about, but if we did it that way again. But the game's changed. Like, the game's completely different. The list is so different to what it was. And not only that, the ones that remain aren't the same players that they were back then. Like if you look at Bond, he's gone from strength to strength, but a lot of those guys have either moved on like I have, and most of the other teammates who played during that period, and the ones who remain are pushing 30 and they're starting to get into the later part of their career. Hopefully they all play forever, but that's not obviously going to be the case. So trying to match up the new group, the new requirements, personalities, generational changes is obviously a big part of it as well.
Well, the competition is different as well. I mean, I don't think anybody could argue that the competition is probably as close as it's ever been. And, from that perspective, you have to be agile and you have to be able to think and change and evolve. And I think that's something that as a club we're doing really well at the moment.
I feel like the evenness, though at the moment, is being like the commentary around it is the evenness is being driven by underperformance of some teams who look better on paper than they're performing. Like if you think across the board of those teams like Melbourne, who we thought would just go from strength to strength, the Giants, who started the year on fire and have really fallen away, us doing the opposite of that. Like there's just so many great players, or Collingwood, have had a tough year as well. Brisbane have had challenges. It does feel like a lack of getting it right rather than everyone being at their best and it's just even, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you never on any given Sunday. The phrase they have that ideally, I think it was the NFL that came up with it. On any given Sunday, any team could beat any team. Great film.
Great film. It's like 4 hours long, but yeah, it's good.
Inch by inch, play by play. By the way, type in, if you've not done this, type in any given Sunday Bulldogs 2016 prelim. Someone has put that speech monologue with the highlight. Anyway. Ultimately, the AFL sort of has that any given Sunday. On any given day, North Melbourne could beat Sydney. It's not. It would be a surprise, but it's not outrageous. Can we stop that? Because I'm really sick of it. I would just like to have a nice, comfortable season where we win the flag and I don't have to stress. Can you make that happen?
Well, that definitely does sound like a dream, Danny, and it's a dream that I would share.
Does sound like a Bulldogs dream, though, does it?
But the reality is you're 100% right. This is by design. This closeness of the competition is absolutely on purpose, because the closer the games, the more engagement, the higher ratings, the higher attendance, and that's great for the competition holistically. So, while absolutely I share the desire for the same dream, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
I think that, like, just having thought about that, so we're 10 to 15 years removed from Gold Coast and the Giants both joining the league, and a lot of the turmoil that followed, I would argue, obviously comes from injecting two clubs that need just as many players and just as much support. And do you have any view on, say, the new team coming in, how that is likely to impact the competition? Or is it more like, let's just focus on our stuff, and when, whoever comes in and says, hey, everything's about to change, that you deal with that then?
Well, I think having a truly national competition is good for the sport. So from that perspective, I think the expansion of teams in other parts of the country is a positive thing if you look at AFL as a code holistically. But, certainly for us, it will provide some challenges around draft, around financial support, etc. So they're things as a club that we need to be focused on to make sure that we don't lose any traction in that space or to minimise any impact on us.
Yeah, so be good then. Be good when they're coming in is the rule.
Well, we bottomed out at the worst possible time last time. Like, when our premiership window closed just as Gold Coast and GWS were taking all the draft picks. It seemed a bad idea, but it did work out for us.
Yeah, but then your captain left.
Yeah.
So it was a bit it wasn't that smooth of a ride.
And we brought in the greatest Bulldog ever.
Yeah,
anyway. Enough of me just blowing smoke up Boydie's butt. Anyway, Kylie, so you talk about there's constant chatter within the club of not chatter, but you reassess where you're at. How much of this season has surprised you? Because it's been a roller coaster, and if for us fans, we're bracing for impact at times. Other times we're strapping in, and going, here we go, this is going to be great. We beaten Collingwood last weekend was absolutely fantastic. The lows of losing to frickin' Hawthorn, but also smashing the Tigers by almost 100 points. That's how much of this did you foresee? Are you watching like a Roman emperor just going, yes, I knew this would happen, yes. Or are you there going, I'm not sure what's happening? How much do you know?
Well, I've been a Bulldog supporter my whole life, so nothing ever surprises me. That's just kind of
except a few wins.
Just kind of the reality of our existence, isn't it, as doggy supporters? For me, what I'm pleased about is that I do think over the last few weeks the team has really pulled together, and you see it in the rooms. You see it in the rooms after the games. You can see that connectivity, and I think one of the things that I think our fans should know is that I'm very privileged to get to sit in that room after the game, win or loss, and to listen to the coach's address. But I tend to watch body language, and our playing group all leans right in. They are all in, and that's after a big win or a big loss. They are focused. They're leaning in. They're committed to the journey, and getting that feedback and really understanding what to do next.
Did we have that last year? Were players leaning in?
Yeah, we do, I think we do have it, but I think in times where you're seeing up and down, which we've had this year, that's when you probably take more notice to say, is there that connectivity? Are we seeing that that real focus and that real connection across that group and that real desire to continue to chase down the ultimate? And I'm definitely seeing it this year.
What's the worst things you've seen after a game? I'm open that to both of you because I've never been in the rooms after a game. What would be like the worst thing you could see, apart from like the obvious two players punching on? In a hypothetical situation, what would be the worst thing to see?
Oh, this is the easiest question to answer.
Right.
Firstly, I wouldn't consider it always a privilege to be in the rooms after a game. Much more in the chore phase, especially if you have a bad loss. I mean, the worst thing is bad injuries. To be clear, I mean, like the worst one is obviously when Mitch broke his leg. That by far and away is easily the worst thing you ever see in a game. And that was like the strange thing about that night was that Jack Redpath did his ACL, and that seemed like he'd basically twisted his finger compared to Mitch, which is the stupidest thing ever because they probably had a similar timeline to return.
And as horrible as that was for Mitch and Jack, though, the whole club was galvanised by our brother is injured. No, I'm talking like for connectivity.
I know. But explicitly you asked the question, what's the worst? The first thing that popped in my head was listening to Mitch scream with his broken leg. That was very easy to put into that box.
And it doesn't have to be something that's happened, but what would be the worst thing to see?
Well, I don't think you'd want to see a group of people leaning back, avoiding eye contact, crossing their arms over their chest, just like in anything. Just if I was in a meeting with my team and that's how they were, as in my own personal Walt Disney Company team.
You and Donald and Goofy and Pluto. If Pluto's there checking his phone, no good. Bad dog.
And I think you want them to be to be showing the right behaviours for the right reasons. Because to be frank, like there is a fear factor that happens post game, especially head coaches are strong characters; they always will be. And there is a very distinct, I think, recognition amongst players that if you have a poor loss, like your week is going to be negatively impacted moving forward, and you don't want them sitting there just scared and just doing the right thing because they're scared about it. You want to see them trying to solve the problems themselves and taking ownership of it rather than just sinking back into their chairs. And whether they're showing eye contact or not, that's fine. But if you don't, the coach will yell at you. So it's sort of like, what do they do? Why are they doing it? And I think too often that over the last little while, I imagine that there's been a few who have stood up and taken accountability. And Bont's a great example. He will always stand in front and say, this is on us, it's on me, and the playing group needs to perform better. But you want to see those younger players who are now starting, like Ed Richards has had a breakout year this year. I have no idea. Ed's quite a quiet guy, but people like him or have had this ascension, I suppose, on the field. You want to see them starting to own up for the responsibility of how the team is performing, because the coach can't go out there, as much as they probably all think they still can, and kick the goals and fight the fights, right? So you have to see the young guys stepping up, and we have to see more of a contribution amongst our whole team rather than just a few at the top, which happens at most clubs, to be honest. But the best ones have a full team contribution for sure.
Of responsibility. Do you remember, Kylie? I think it was around 94. I'm sure a listener can tell us the exact date.
I remember this, yeah.
I believe it was before you were born, Thomas Christian Boyd. Steve Krediuk, I believe, handed back his paycheck, and said, because he wasn't happy with his own performance, handed it back and went, I don't deserve that. Do you remember that story?
Well, that's a pretty definitive statement, isn't it, of ownership? I'm not sure you could give me on that.
Back then as then
And I love that
he flicked the 50-cent coin right back at him.
And I love that he was paid with a little piece of paper. I'm not sure that happens now either. I'm not sure what you would hand back now, but that's a pretty definitive expression of ownership.
You didn't have any bad games, but if you'd done that, it would have paid for the redevelopment.
I just can't. I can't get away from thinking back to when I got my first jumper presented. I think it was Ron Stockman presented it to me, and I think Ron's passed since, and he was quite old at the time. But he got up there and he's like, we didn't get paid when I was playing, and then halfway through my career, we started getting paid $2 bob a game. And I just read some bloke got $7 million, and he didn't know it was me. And then presented and I was like, oh God.
And here's your gold embossed jumper.
Yeah. Oh, it was hilarious. But, I think, again, to the point of the accountability of throwing your paycheck back, I don't think it's about that. I think, the combination of responsibility from the club and the player is the club's supposed to get the player to the best potential that they can, and the player is supposed to give everything they can to reach that potential as well. So everyone's all in the same boat, and we're all going to suffer if we don't play any good footy. So might as well work together.
And how optimistic do you reckon fans should be at the moment? Because, as I said, we smashed the Tigers, then we beat the Giants up there, and we did it without kicking a goal. I mean, anyone can kick through the big sticks and win. That's the easy way. We're doing it the hard way. Then we almost knock out Sydney, who are looking like when I talk about having an easy season, that's what Sydney are having. That's the season I want. You just win most of your games. It's all relaxing. You get a couple of rookies who are just amazing. We almost beat them. Absolute disgraceful 50-metre penalty took us out of the game. Then we beat Collingwood, the reigning premiers. We're playing Brisbane this Friday, who we match up pretty well against. And then we got a week break, and then we play Freo, and we need revenge on them. My lid is not as screwed on as it should be, probably. How's yours?
My enthusiasm is measured, so that I'm keeping the lid on for sure. But, we are seeing some really strong signs, and, we haven't even talked yet about our young guns. I mean, we've got some amazing talent coming through.
Who's your favourite? I know you don't have favourites, but who's your favourite, and why is it Sam Darcy?
I was just about to say, hey, you couldn't go past us.
He'll be fresh as after the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. But putting aside the report and the outcome, I think also though, as a young lad like that, to be able to overcome something that happened early in the game that could have rattled him.
Playing on the edge is the hardest thing to teach big guys when they're young.
Yeah, and
so this is a good thing.
Yeah,
we don't encourage it, but it's a good thing.
We have to talk about playing on the edge in the Patreon episode coming up. We are recording. For those who aren't a Patreon, do sign up, because Kylie Watson-Wheeler is doing a bonus episode with us where we're going to get a bit more honest, and it starts at only $5 a month. Anyway, we just got to do an ad in there at the moment. But I'm loving Gallagher. Sanders is just like, we were all in on Sanders round one. Couldn't even get a badge of him. And then he was subbed out of games, but now he's looking like, we were right to be excited.
Yeah, and he's fighting for it. He's fighting for his spot, which is great too. Huge amount of energy from him. So, the talent coming through the ranks for us is really extraordinary.
Westy's shown a lot.
What a great year he's had, Riley West. It's just amazing. Anyway, so okay. Well, are we just listing all our players and just saying how much we love them?
I think everyone who gets drafted can kick a footy. Almost everyone. There's been a couple of exceptions. But everyone that we have drafted, I think, and that has come into the fold, they have the right tenacity level. They go hard after they have the intensity. Darcy's got the physical side of the game. He still needs to build his capability to get involved more, which is super normal. But the fact that he can take a big mark, that's the hard bit. So,
how old is Darcy? He's not 21 yet, so he's going to keep growing even more.
Yes, I think he's in his third year. Yeah? Because he didn't play at all in his first one, played a bit last year. Because this was the whole thing with the Rising Star nominee, is that he's technically 3 years in, but he didn't play in his first season with his foot.
I feel like he's 20.
He was born 19th of July 2003, so that is 21 this year. Okay, so he's about to stop. So he's gonna stop growing in 3 weeks. He can get another couple of centimetres.
I think the great thing for Darcy is they've had the blueprint of watching Tim English come through slowly, because we didn't used to do that slowly. It was kind of like have a crack. And I think that they've got a recipe now to build Sam up in the right pace and get him to the right size. And it'll be a lot of it will be about his running capability, because as Tim's got stronger and stronger, he slowed down a bit, then his running caught up, and now he's
really good. I hope we re-sign him.
Me too.
Yeah, me too.
With no lack of trying, I'm sure.
Come on, Tim. Come on. I know you listen. Come on. Get the pen on the paper, bud.
Yeah,
you can
I
do
did
it.
speak to his partner, Rudy, about the other day.
Did you?
Yep.
One of the few people that you have to look up at.
No, well, I did see the funniest thing was I did run into Tim and Rudy walking together through the Woolworths near my house, and not a single person in the Woolworths noticed me. Because there's two blondes who are like 6'9" and 6'5" walking there. It's just like you can see them over the top of the aisles in the supermarket. It's such a there's two athletes over there.
Yeah, they look like, and because they're both bright blonde as well.
Yeah.
They look like the villains from the
And
Matrix.
they've both got like very, very long legs. And I'm just walking around with my 2-year-old and no one cared about me. It was really refreshing, actually.
All right, we should get to some listener mail. We did allow the Patreons to ask you questions, and we can get more into chatting and everything. I love this question from Frode. Frode's one of our favourite international listeners. He's Norwegian, but he lives in Florida, and for some reason loves the Bulldogs.
We're worldwide, baby.
We
I
are.
love that.
Oh, Frode's a good bloke. Anyway, he wants to know, having been around the club for a while, were there still aspects of becoming and being president that take you by surprise?
You know, as far as the operation of the club, there wasn't. I'd been on the board for 7 years and I had been Peter's vice president for a couple of years before that. So as far as the function and the role itself, no. And certainly I was expecting there to be media criticism and weighing in. I was
used
ready.
to be directed at Peter.
I was ready for that. Yeah, I was ready for that. But yeah, I mean, I think probably what surprised me, I know our fans are passionate and I love that they're passionate. I was probably a little surprised by how passionate they can be in social media, and particularly from a personal perspective. But you know what? I love that our fans really care and they care that much. But that was probably the thing that I didn't expect to be as hard.
Because President Gordon wasn't on social media, so you are probably the first president.
He was on the ABC every week. That was his social media.
Exactly.
He used to fax a few ideas to me. But so you would be the first president in Footscray history to have to bear the brunt of social media. You're a pioneer. You're on the front line. You've probably copped a few bullets.
Yeah, I haven't thought of it that way, but yeah, possibly. But, you know, that's part of the gig, right? You know, I mean, this is I'm not sure if, actually a lot of people don't realise it. This is a volunteer position. We don't get paid to be
Quite the
the
opposite.
president of the club. Yeah, you're
You
right.
actually donate a lot of money
it
and
costs.
time to the club, and we thank you for it.
Well, it is my pleasure, but thank you for that. But, you know, I think from that perspective, you know, you're probably right. You know, perhaps it is the first time that you know, I'm facing that in a very visible way in social media, but it's important. It's important to be able to speak to the fans and get messages out there, and social media is a great way to do that. And if it means that I cop a bit because of that, then, you know, that's all part of it.
And you don't get it in your other role. I mean, if the latest Pixar isn't as good as people think, no one's there going, "What is the managing director doing?"
Well, I don't get that from the public, but I might get that from elsewhere. So.
Oh, really? What's the latest one? Inside Out 2, apparently very good, I've been told.
Yep.
But you know,
Moana 2's coming out, mate. That's all that matters.
is it? Now we're talking.
Number
Any
one
roles?
viewed trailer in history or something.
Really?
I thought you guys would be all over Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, yeah, that's coming out too.
That's our next one.
I'm just thinking about like the joy on my daughter's face watching Moana 2 coming out the trailer.
It will be pretty exciting.
special.
No. See, Jackman, Reynolds, Wrexham. Nick off, buddy. I want Thor. I'm just all about Hemsworth. And man, did you? I think it was shared on the Bulldogs socials.
Yeah,
Chris
yeah.
Hemsworth going on that YouTube show where you eat spicy chili.
the chili,
and
yeah.
he talked
Hot
about
ones.
talked about going to the grand final. Now you'd know.
He didn't think like he was. He kind of looked like he cared, but he was pretty distracted by the level of spice.
And he is an actor, so you can bring that up. But hey, you had Hemsworth in your. Was he sitting with you in like round 3? I think it was at West Coast when he was at the game.
We've had him at games a few times.
And
a few times. Does that mean you sneak him in sometimes?
No,
Yeah.
no. Usually it makes it into the
makes it something.
telecast.
Yeah, fair enough.
Or another.
And would he be keen on doing a certain podcast? That's what we're asking here.
I'm sure he doesn't have any media requests.
Yeah, well, he is AAA list, so I'm sure that'll be easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, his managers will be real keen on.
This is hey. You want to look?
Maybe he wants to plug his latest thing on like Dior or whatever, like perfume.
We
he's
will
doing.
plug whatever. Man, if he wants us to plug the Hawthorn Football Club, we will do that to get him on.
We'll bring spicy wings.
We'll bring spicy wings. Now we're talking.
See, I'm not surprised how passionate our fans are. I've learned the hard way, probably. What I also learned was how passionate our fans are, which is 10 times more when they're upset and frustrated than they are when they're happy and positive. Because they don't go on social media when they're happy. They go to their other friends who are supporters.
That's right. You go to the pub. You go to your mate's place. You're texting each other going, oh, how good's Caleb?
And one of the things we discussed last time when you were on was like the president sort of playing the role of it's not about me, and then when there needs to be some clear messaging, going out and doing so. You obviously have done so this year. How does the club find the balance of saying when things aren't going well, we want to clearly communicate what's going on with our fans versus, well, we're on a hiding to nothing at the moment because we played terrible on the weekend and we shouldn't have lost. How do you find that balance, and how does the club, I suppose, view that balance? Because as players, we all want to retreat back to our shells, and unfortunately, that's what the captain's job is, to go out and talk when we're losing. So how do you strike that balance? Because it's not simple and it's not easy.
Well, I think communications with our fans is really important, and so I do think they want to know what's happening. But you can't be reactive. If you come out every time you lose a game, or you don't want to be.
I do 24 reviews a year.
Yeah.
How are we going this week?
So I think you've got to choose your moment, and I do think. And while I said that you don't necessarily, or you have to try to not to listen to white noise, you do have to understand when there is a crescendo building.
Yes.
And when there is a crescendo building, there is a recognition that it is important to get on the front foot and to come out and to make a statement. And the reality is at those times you'll get trashed for saying something, and you'll get trashed for not saying something. So you just have to be prepared for that. So you know that when you go out there, you'll still get a whole lot of vitriol blow back, but you've got to do it for the right reasons at the right moment.
Yeah, you are
Pressure
very
release.
much a cricket umpire, it seems. Whenever we lose, it's like a ball hitting a batter's legs and the pad, and everyone's just looking at you to go, is he out? Is he out? And it must be so much pressure.
Yeah, it would be pressure if you're listening to that. And as I said,
and you only listen to this pod. Thank you.
Well, that's right. That is so incredibly true.
You wouldn't listen if it was just one or the other together.
Well, sometimes, because I am a Patreon subscriber, and sometimes I go to press that button and I hold my breath as I press it. And I think, what are they going to say? I know. I might say I'm a little scared to press play, but I listen.
To your point, well, I only feel comfortable, and I think we only feel comfortable criticising what's going on if we're doing it for the right reasons, because we feel like that the fans don't understand what's happening. And sometimes it's not as bad as it seems, and sometimes it's probably worse than it seems. And it's about, I suppose, fleshing out I feel like a large portion of why fans are so aggressive in the wrong areas is because they're just not educated well enough on what the game how it actually works. We're not saying everyone needs to be Dennis Cometti and know everything that's happening, but I think it's about understanding the dynamic of who's actually in charge of these different places. And it's not just one person. It's never just the CEO. It's never just the president. It's never just the coach. There's always different dynamics at play. And whilst there's obviously individuals with huge amounts of responsibility within the club, you still have to understand the dynamic for you to understand why things are happening the way they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is why, even though sometimes I do hold my breath, I do listen to the Patreon potty, because I do think you bring some really good perspective and context. Thank you. An understanding of what really happens behind the scenes. And, and that's one of the challenges that we face, as we said, even with people in the media, where they're making particular statements where if you really knew what was happening behind the scenes within the club, you wouldn't make such
That's the thing. We want to know. We would love to know, but we understand
people within the media as like a broad sentence. I'm just it's just a wall of mug shots that I can imagine
media types
being up on the club's
the
wall.
The entire cast of Fully Classified, the entire cast of on the couch.
We won't ask Kylie that question, but that's when you say white noise, I'm just thinking whatever the colours of SEN are. That's the
Kane Corns is just like a supernova giant sun of white noise.
And this is actually, to the context bit, one of the things that I said to Danny on the way over is the media, to make there be enough stories for the football media to have an interesting story to tell every week, you have to react every week.
Oh, yes.
So to the recent comments of we're second premiership favourites, which I hadn't
heard.
That
was on the couch said we were Sydney are premiership favourites and we're second, and that was sent to us by a couple of listeners, and I love that. But at the same time, it actually made my lid go on further.
We're 11th on the ladder. But and I think this is a point. You have to be reactive if you want to make it interesting, because otherwise there's not. You can't sit there and go, I'm holding my opinion on where the Bulldogs going to end up because they've had a tough start. They've come back and they're a bit better now. I'm just going to wait and see.
Welcome to the Nuanced Football Show. Tom, how do you think Gold Coast are going? Well, I'll save my opinion for later. Thanks for joining us. Another question, and I don't like this question, but we promised the Patreons we'd ask. Luke has asked, has pointed out St Kilda recently signalled they wish to shift a number of home games to the MCG and longer term have a shared tenancy between Docklands and the G. He loves getting down to the G, Luke. He laments they only play 2 games a year. Is getting more games at the MCG something the club is interested and could lobby for in the future? You answer, but I hope the answer is no.
And how does that work?
Well, the answer is no. We
Docklands is a superior stadium.
We do love Marvel Stadium, and our playing group loves to play there. And we also have Ballarat, of course, so Mars Stadium in Ballarat, which we love to get down there a couple of times a year as well. There could be we would be open to playing more away games at the G. Good to get more experience there, particularly for finals and obviously the grand final as well, if we were lucky enough to have the opportunity to play there. So that's a positive thing. But, I think holistically, Marvel Stadium is our home. And I think it's important for us to play there.
Especially if St Kilda are buggering off, suddenly we've got more room in the communal fridge.
Absolutely.
To use the housemate
I
analogy.
did just go, obviously, it's also sponsored by Marvel, so it's a pretty tough spot to put the press in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
See,
I have no idea what you're talking about, Tom. No idea.
See, I consider, from a nostalgic point of view, the MCG is the home of football for me. It was always a place I loved playing at the most. I like playing outside for whatever reason. Maybe I'm tall, so the lights at Marvel.
You were worried of hitting your head on the roof.
Yeah, but you got to have a home stadium that you can defend. And I think the other thing that's probably not understood, there's the level of logistics of moving everything week to week and trying to get it all we're doing it here this week and then we're going to go back and just go back and forth. It'd be horrible. And also, there's not that much fun about playing at the MCG with at a third full. I played there for the Giants when it was about a 10th full against Richmond.
Yep.
And it's not the same. Watching 50 or 60,000 roll in and seeing a almost at capacity stadium is always a better product.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
All right, Tim, he actually has his own podcast, I'll plug it, The Whiskey Bulldog, combining two things that I love, the Footscray Football Club and whiskey. He's talking about he's quite impressed with how you've remained steadfast and level-headed. But a great question here, are there actually any examples where community feedback has directly influenced a significant decision at the club? He says during your time as president, but I'll open that to the whole time you've been at the board and... have you ever seen? I can't imagine the boards there going, Johnny
from down the road.
Steve _328 reckons we should maybe move Ed Richards to the midfield. Let's do it.
Well, firstly, it is most definitely not the board's role to select the team.
I know, okay,
so I
fair
want to make that very clear.
And if they ever start doing it, the club is stuffed.
Yeah, that is it. That is most certainly
guarantee
the end.
it's happened before. In AFL history, it's happened.
Yeah.
There's no question that would have happened at some time at some club, for sure. But I can't. Nothing comes to mind specifically. As I said, our focus is very much on making sure that we know we have the details, we have the facts, we're making decisions based on what we know in our privileged position of being within the club. But I think as far as the community, our community is really important to us. And if you think about Whitten Oval and our redevelopment and, really ensuring that space is for our community, it has been something that's been really important to us. So I think we've taken some feedback, and I know that's not specifically what his question was, but we've definitely taken into account what our community wants in relation to the redevelopment. It's nearly finished, which is pretty exciting. We move admin.
Only 4 years to go.
Yeah. we move admin, I think, on July 1, and at that point our community can come back to our cafe and the like. And
excellent.
And then we won't be far from it being fully completed after that.
Bulldog shop reopening.
Yeah. Yep.
I've seen some great, that new retro range.
Yeah, there's some good merch coming through.
Good Footscray stuff.
Yeah, there really is, which goes nicely with the new space. And then we're going to have W games being played there, which I can't wait to be back there, for that community feel. So.
Which, By the way, I want to give you a big compliment. Gratitude is what I'm going to do. Thank you, because for those who have been to the AFLW games at Whitten Oval, we had a terrible season, but I was still there a fair few times. And every time I was at Whitten Oval, who did I see in the crowd talking to everyone? President Kylie Watson-Wheeler. You're a woman of the people, and I'm not just pissing in your pocket. You were literally there on the front line at the coalface. You were talking to everyone, taking feedback. People are probably asking really stupid questions. What was the dumbest question you got?
This guy called Danny asked me a question around could we get more ice cream vans?
Yes, the queue was ridiculous.
Yeah, which
I stand by him.
Yeah, which I did say I'll pass that
You did.
feedback on.
She's so patient. She was just like, yeah, no worries.
Old Monald.
But yeah, can we? Will there be more food trucks this year?
We certainly want to maximise the experience for everybody.
One food truck per person.
that could be a little bit difficult, but
that means that there's not enough people in the crowd. That's what that means.
That's very Melbourne to have your own personal chef.
in some ways, I think it's almost a good thing that there was too long a line at the ice cream trucks. It means that there was heaps of people there, which was, which is fantastic. But to your point about me being in the crowd, I've spent my life in that crowd. That's where I belong. You know, that's why I love footy.
This time, there's 2 empty seats on centre wing every game because you still buy a membership.
Of course I do. And I don't only buy a membership, I buy a seat. I buy 2 seats, yeah.
So they're empty. So let us know what they are and our fans.
I'll turn on.
Yeah, so when there's a sellout game.
We'll give that to a Patreon, high tier member. You get to sit in Kylie's seats.
You have to sit next to my dad, though. So he has lots of commentary. Talking about white noise.
Love it.
Yeah.
We do a podcast there. That'd be great.
Hey, this is a question without notice. This is from Danny. We talked about your relationship with other presidents, because I'm just wanting to know, when you go to the away games and you're sitting with, because you're the guest of the other president, who's got the best catering? Is it still Geelong? They were famous. They had cake CWA recipes.
Yeah, Geelong, I think they have Chin Chin at the moment.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's pretty fancy out there.
Yeah.
But the new catering at Marvel Stadium is good.
Yeah.
Marvel Stadium was great,
Last
of course.
year, I feel like we had Shane was cooking.
Well, that's what I was going to say. And sometimes Shane D'Elia, one of our great fans, partners, etc. at the Dogs, he sometimes cooks for us, which is pretty special.
It was fantastic.
So you've been in the president's function.
I did. I went once last year, I think.
It's pretty good. We're getting sausage rolls over at Top Dogs.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was great.
But I've just worked out, this is why, if people there's people lamenting why we always play Geelong at Cardinia, because we rarely beat them there. It's because the president's getting chin-chin. I would do the exact same thing, Kylie.
Please don't start that rumour.
No, we know why we play there, because it's western suburbs, and for people who live in Werribee, it's just as easy to get to Cardinia as it does to Marvel. So
I would love for us to never play there.
Well, yeah, but it's in the corridor.
Now that I'm not playing anymore, because I liked getting a kick down there and losing, unfortunately.
Boydie loved it because it was the shape of the ground.
It's really skinny. It's great for full forwards. Halfbacks and wingers can't stuff around with the ball over there. There's no space.
All right,
but we always lost, so I'm happy to play Marvel.
We are running out of time for this free-to-air episode. We're about to record a bonus Patreon, so do get involved in that. It's only $5 a month. Australian, by the way. Some podcasts charge US dollars. We would never do that. We're charging...
That's not a bad idea now that you mention it.
I know, but knowing my use of technology, I'll actually change it to Zimbabwean dollars. It'll cost you 0.43 of a cent. Is there any last messages you want to give to the fans in a very, this is broadcast and this is direct in the ears of the members? What would you like them to know and take away? So when they're at the game over the next few weeks and some idiot fan has an opinion, because they don't listen to the pod, what an idiot, they'll say, no, I heard the president on the Danny Boyd podcast and she said...
Well, the first thing I'd like to say to the fans is thank you. We have hit our all-time membership record this week. Over 57,000 members. That's the third time we've shown that growth over the last 3 years, and we're going pretty hard after 60,000. So tell your friends.
By the end of the year?
Yeah, by the end of this year.
Okay.
So tell your Bulldogs friends that are not members yet to get on board, because I think that'd be huge for us to crack that 60,000.
Last year when you were on the pod, you pitched it and we agreed it's a great idea. Have you moved on it? Second favourite team membership. It's only like $10. But because so many people say Bulldogs are my second
When
favourite
your
team.
team's playing out of town.
Yeah.
I think people say that until you actually ask them for money, and then and then all of a sudden,
That's always the sticking point. Isn't
yeah,
it?
that's where eye contact is most definitely being avoided.
But what would 60,000 mean? I mean, it brings in more sponsors ultimately. It helps the club's future. So not just from the $20 or whatever you're handing over. It makes people like Mission Tacos and BMW and all of these big people with deep pockets go, oh, actually, yeah, let's get behind the Bulldogs, and it cements the club's future.
Yeah, I mean, membership, of course, is an important contribution to the commercial outcome of the club. The more members we have, the more, regular money we have coming in from that perspective. And you're right, the bigger our fan base, the bigger our community, the more appealing it is to sponsors and other partners. But it's also great as far as attendance in games, more members, more people
Absolutely.
coming to the games, cheering the boys on, which is really important.
Final question. When we win the premiership this year, who's winning the Norm Smith?
Oh, that's very tricky. But, how do you ever go past Bont at the moment? I mean, he's just extraordinary in every way.
Not tricky at all, Kylie.
It's kind of wouldn't, apart from anything else, wouldn't we all love to see that? Wouldn't we
yes.
all love to see a grand final win with Bont winning the...
If
Norm
Bont won
Smith.
3 medals in a year, nothing would make me happier.
Yeah. No, that'd
And
be pretty extraordinary.
would Bevo say, I'd like to get Bailey Smith up on the stand? Tune into the Patreon. Go Dogs.
I gave my childhood to that roar of the red, white and blue sea, and the knowledge that you had two loves, the Bulldog boys and me. 20 years on, I feel that longing hanging in September air. But the reason I go every week is to pretend you're still there. And they will find the glory one day, and I will throw it at your feet. It's a long, long road they're running for you, the dogs of Footscray streets. It's a long, long road they're running for you, the dogs of Footscray streets.